moving 2012 for EB-1. Are you smoking weed, Emily, anymore?
I wish, but no, unfortunately. Yeah, so today we got the August visa bulletin, and the Department of State had mentioned back in the May bulletin that they might have to retrogress India further than what it was already for EB-1 due to number use by the rest of the world. And so, yeah, we went backwards an entire decade in 1 month. You know, and that's even with having extra green cards this year. So
we have 1,000 extra green cards this year, is that right, Emily?
Yeah.
So that means that approximately maybe 15,000 green cards extra available for EB-1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so normally there's 40,000 available for EB-1, and this year we have 56,000 available. So even with 16,000 extra EB-1 green cards, the rest of the world is expected to use up all of them, which means that the 7% cap is put in place for both India and China. So that leaves both of those countries, maximum they can receive is about 3,900 green cards in the EB-1 category. At the same time, there's a backlog for India of about 7,000 approved I-140s in EB-1 as of March 2023. So they only get 3,000, 4,000 green cards. There's 7,000 I-140s already approved, waiting for a green card as of a couple of months ago. And that doesn't count the family members. So I think this is, you know, the visa bulletin claims that maybe in October, the EB-1 date will move back to where it was in July. I don't expect that to happen just based on the number of I-140s being filed. So we have statistics from USCIS that tell us every year going back the last 10 years, how many EB-1 I-140s are filed every year. And normally it ranges around 20 to 25,000 EB-1 I-140 petitions filed every year. Already in just the first half of this year, they've received about 17,000, which is, if they stay on that track, we're looking at about 34,000 I-140 filed.
Wait, Emily. There are 40,000 green cards. You're telling that they're on the path for 35,000. So we still have extra 15,000 green cards. So we have 55,000 green cards available. And you're worried about 35,000. What's the difference?
Well, of course, you know, when USCIS takes 2 years to approve a 485, they're still processing I-140s, you know, the 485s for I-140s that were filed the prior year. So we probably really have 34,000 plus another 25,000 from last year. 50, so yeah, that's 59,000 right there in 2 years that are going to use up all of those green cards this year.
And then family members counting, so you're saying approximately 100,000 applications of the are there in there. And one of the problem I see, Emily, in this one is that when the EB-1 gets filled out, that means that there is no spillover to EB-2. And of course, EB-2 has been getting filled out from the past 15 years, I guess so. So 16 years. So practically there's no spillover from EB-2 to EB-3, but there used to be spillover from EB-1 to EB-2 sometimes. When we don't have that spillover, that means that the backlog is going to be heavy for EB-2 also going forward. And you're saying
right,
that
because even EB-2 rest of world, they're filling it out, which means that there's no spill across from the rest of the world to EB-2 India. So we don't have the spill down from EB-1, nothing coming from rest of world in EB-2. All three categories are going to be limited to just the 7%.
In other words, the article you have written in 2018 that it's going to take 82 years seems to be that you're wrong utterly, and seems that the Kato Institute, which contradicted your article, that you were wrong using the same stats, but they have a lot more stats than you have, I think so. And they're telling it's 150 years for the people who are going to file right now. Seems to be that Kato Institute is right and you're wrong.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Just with the numbers of filing, there's just higher demand in every category and for the rest of the world. And that just leaves very little to make it through the backlog.
And Emily, since why 10 years? Who are there in there who have applied in 2013 who are there?
Apparently, there are some that have not yet received the green card. So they moved the date back as far as the very first person that is still pending from 2013, I guess, or 2012. I don't know why they don't just make the category unavailable, because that's basically what it is. They used to put a U instead of moving the date back 10 years. So I'm not really quite sure what they're doing with that. But yeah, there are still applicants pending that go back to 2013.
Yet the priority dates for the other nations have not gone that backlogged in EB-1. Of course, when I see that in the EB-1 category, very rarely we see other rest of the world, is always mostly available, but they're saying even the rest of the world is August 1st of 2023, which is what? Which is not there, which is August.
Right, yeah.
So that means that if you have to file. So for those people who are intending to file from the rest of the world, they should file the application before July 31st. And for those people whose priority date falls between February 2022 and 2012, if their I-140 is still pending, I strongly recommend they file the 485 application right now, because take a risk at it, because you never know when this chance is going to come to open up. So please try to file your applications within this month. And our office is open if anybody wants to file their applications in EB-1, even if your I-140 is still pending. If your priority date is before February 2022, you can still file the application by the end of this month, but not starting from August 1st of 2023. Emily, can you explain the concept of retrogression? I mean, what does that mean? How does the dates move back? They can only move forwards, right? How can you explain that a little bit? I
don't know if I can clearly explain it. The way to kind of think about it is, if you go to a restaurant and they have all these open tables and they start seating people at these tables, but they start running out of food for some people, they're not able to clear those tables to allow more people to sit down and eat at the restaurant. And so instead of just telling people to wait, they tell people you can't get a reservation for the last 10 years unless you made your reservation 10 years ago, I guess is what I'm trying to say, for the restaurant. So that's the easiest way, I think, to think about it. Yeah, and it's not anything new for EB-1 India. We were having several months or even years prior to COVID when EB-1 was backlogged for India. We had to worry about people who were on L1A and were running into the 7-year limit and couldn't file the 485 now because the dates had retrogressed and they didn't start the EB-1C filing of the I-140 early enough. So we're kind of back to that situation again, back to the situation where maybe PhD students who have their 3 years of OPT, that is not going to be enough time for them to file an EB-1A, I-140, and get the 485 filed. So they might have to switch to an O1 or look for other options. People that are on H-1B, of course, as long as they have their I-140 approved, they can keep extending that H-1 until they can file the 485. So they're in somewhat better of a situation because they're not maxing out of time. But that's something that people need to just be aware of. It's not going to be a fast track green card anymore for India.
And also people who have had EB-2 approval, some of the people are trying to convert into EB-1 application. That's the reason the priority date sometimes, if they have like 2013, 2014, they're converting into EB-1. So that's one thing that we have noticed a lot. And there are a lot of people, Emily, that have taken they have taken the chance of going to India, working for a company in a higher level manager position and wanting to come back. In fact, I had a consultation recently, and he said his priority date is 2016, early part of 2016. They asked a question, what do you think, so Rahul, is the priority date is going to go back? I said, no, very unlikely that it's going to go back beyond 2000, before 2016. I guess I'm wrong in it. Again, I would say, and again. And so obviously, is it EB-1 is the question is asking. That 2012 is EB-1 or something else?
Yeah, these dates just make no sense, I think. And what really is frustrating is the whole purpose of creating these two charts and having the filing date and the final action date was to try to avoid retrogression, because by having a filing date and letting people file early, they could actually see how many people were in the pipeline and control the final action date better. Well, that's done nothing. We've had these two charts for almost 6 years now. No, more than that, 8 years. And I feel like retrogression is happening more and more now than it did before we had the two charts.
What do you think, so Emily, if they stop counting the family members, how soon the priority dates can move?
I mean, instantly, because then you're basically tripling the number of green cards that are available compared to what they are now. And I think with the exception of EB-2, so in EB-2 India, I think I had posted on Twitter a few weeks ago when the statistics came out, there are 350,000 approved I-140s in EB-2 India where the date is not current. And so even if we triple the number of green cards available from 140,000 to 400, and I can't do math live, but
it'd be 300,000 Emily.
Yeah, that still wouldn't be enough to make EB-2 current, but it would definitely help for sure.
Yeah, I think even if it's not going to be current, Emily, it's going to be pretty soon moving, because the rest of the world may not be able to use that much. The Indians may benefit a lot on that one. So we request all the people to write letters to the congressman, to write letters to the administration, to stop counting the family members. In the H-1Bs, for the 65,000 plus 20,000 for the master's quota, they don't count the H-4s as H-1s. Why should they count the family members? The administration can stop counting on it. So please keep writing on those things. Emily, you have suggested that the L1 people definitely will be in trouble, because even as soon as they come in, they may not be able to get the green card application, because a lot of companies will take a lot of time to file the application. They need to be now ready to go back to their home country and then wanting to plan to come back at a later time. And also you give O1 option. If they are eligible for O1, they should look into the O1 option. And H1 people can keep on extending. Emily, what if I am coming here as a multinational executive? Can I file my I-140, get it approved, and after my 7 years, I go back to India and come back and then retain the old priority date? With the same?
I think that's what people are going to have to do, because obviously if you only have 7 years of L1 time and the priority date is backlogged 10 years, there's no possible way you can get your green card within those 7 years. So you come in, you file your I-140 as early as you can. You use your 7 years, you go out. Once you stay outside the US for 1 full year, you're eligible for a fresh 7 years. So you can come back, assuming that you're still in that same managerial position, staying with the company. And then once you're back on L1, you can proceed with the 485 filing whenever your date becomes current. So the I-140 approval does not go away just because you've returned to your home country for a year. Even if you return for 10 years, it doesn't go away. You still get to keep that priority date in that category as long as the US job offer remains available to you.
Emily, can you explain why for the other nations it's August 1st, 2023, and for Indians it's in 2002? It's in 2012, Emily. What is this per country cap?
Yeah, so basically when, we have 140,000 employment-based green cards available in a normal year, and each category gets a certain percentage. So the EB-1 category gets 28.6% of those 140,000 green cards, which comes out to about 40,000. But when the rest of the world is likely to use up those 40,000, then the whole category is considered to be oversubscribed, meaning more people want the visas than there are visas available. And that's when another section of the Immigration and Nationality Act kicks in, which is the 7% per country limit. That says that any one country cannot get more than 7%. So when there are not that many rest of world people applying and there's plenty of green cards available, there's no per country limit. Those green cards can go to anyone regardless of what your country of birth is. But once that category becomes oversubscribed because the rest of the world is using them at a higher level, then India gets cut down to just 7%, which is about 2,800 green cards. And again, that does include family members. So we're really looking at maybe 1,000 workers that are able to receive the green card in an entire year for all of India in EB-1 category. And so this year we've got the 197,000 green cards. That means there's 56,000 available for EB-1. We know India and China are both limited to their 7%, which comes out to, between those two countries together, that's about 7,800 green cards. Of the 56,000, leaving 48,000 for the rest of the world. So what this visa bulletin is saying is that the rest of the world is expected to use up 48,000 EB-1 green cards, leaving 3,900 for India, 3,900 for China, and that uses them all up.
Yeah, which actually India might have already used the entire number. That's the reason they put it. Yeah, instead of putting unavailable, though, they just put pick the date of January 1st, 2012. That's a long, long date. Emily, one of the comment, what Mohan Babu has indicated, that they said that in October visa bulletin, they're going to go back to July visa bulletin final action date. That means that they're going to go to February 2022. How likely do you see that, though?
I think that's very unlikely. I don't think so. So they say that it depends. So they're basically hoping that they'll be able to do that. But if the number use continues and we're, getting 34,000 EB-1 I-140s filed again next year, there's no way that they can go back to February 2022. When we were in 2019, pre-COVID, if I recall, EB-1 India was backlogged 5 years consistently, months after month after month. So I would expect maybe a 2017 date if we're lucky in October. But I don't think it'll get back to 2022.
And what about the rest of the world, Emily, especially for the EB-3? It's categorized as May 1st, 2020. That's 3 years backlogged. I haven't seen this kind of backlog in the past, I don't know how long I've been practicing, maybe 20
years.
27.
Yeah.
27 years. I've not seen this kind of backlog ever, though. And the rest of the world used to be February 2022. Now the rest of the world has gone to 2020. It has gone back 2 years behind. That's a big blow, and I think so that going forward, people will not get the green card, especially if they are filing it, as we already predicted before, that they're not going to get the green card they need to have. And some other people are suggesting, Satravan Nadshepan is suggesting, my priority date is January of 2015. Is this the right time for me to go to Canada? Is it a best option? I think so. Definitely. We're not Canadian lawyers, guys, but we don't practice. We don't have any connection with Canada, but we were being told that it's more easier, it's more faster, it's more cheaper to hire a lawyer there compared to us, or sometimes they're doing by their own self. Yeah, it probably is an option. If I were you in your position, I would definitely consider that.
Yeah, and the other thing to consider is U.S. citizen child. If you have kids here, you just have to wait 21 years. And then they will be able to sponsor you.
Then the kid can file for the green card for the parents' family.
21.
Is there any other prerequisite? What if they don't have any income?
So, so for family-based, normally the person who's doing the sponsoring, so this would be the 21-year-old child sponsoring their parents, has to show that they have enough income to support the parents financially at the poverty level, or 125% of the poverty level. But if the child cannot show that they have enough income, you can use the parents' income if the parents are lawfully maintaining their status. Or you can get a co-sponsor that can provide their income in lieu of the parents as well. But the intending immigrants, here it would be the parents who've been on H-1 for who knows how many years, 20 years, would be able to use their income as H-1B holders towards their own green card process sponsored by their 21-year-old child.
Pawan is asking the question, what will happen right now? My application is pending with a 485 concurrently filed. What will be the impact on it? Pawan, you're not going to get the green card. That's one thing I can tell you for sure. But you will get your EAD approval since your 485 is pending. You will get your advance parole approval. You can keep on extending the EAD and advance parole until your priority date becomes current. That's when you're going to get the green card. And if you are qualified for EB-1A, if you want to move from one company to another company, if you're a self-sponsored, you can definitely do so. If it's an outstanding researcher also, you can move from one company to another company as long as you are an outstanding researcher in the similar field for which you applied for the green card. And surprisingly, for EB-1C, which is a multinational executive where you got transferred from the foreign company into US company, even you, after the I-140 is approved, even if the priority date is not current, you can switch the employer from company A to company B as long as the new position is in the same line, is in the same category of the previously filed I-140 and 485 application. Rami is asking, do you advise advocacy units? Yeah, definitely. That's the reason we put a link out there where you can write letters to the congressmen and the senators and the administration to stop counting the family members. There was a bill introduced before for 380,000 green cards, unused green cards by Joe Lofgren, but that is not expected to be passed. There are a lot of bills. We see, Emily, there is a rumor that's going on that Presidential Advisory Committee, I don't know where that committee comes in, recommended to use the unused green cards. I don't know. Where this presidential advisory comes in. But yeah, the administration has authority. They can probably stop counting the family members. They can probably use the unused green cards. They have an authority to issue the EADs for the people who have I-140s approved. They can have that option too.
If you think about just last week, they created this new parole program for certain countries where they have an approved I-130 because they've been sponsored by a U.S. citizen or a green card holder family member. They're allowing some people to come into the U.S. on parole and receive an EAD and wait in the U.S. to be able to file their 485. They don't have any kind of non-immigrant status. That's all done by the president. Executive action.
Wait a minute, Emily. So let's say, for example, I filed for my brother who is in India. The waiting period is 18 years. But if he falls into which countries? You said, let's say.
South
American countries.
El Salvador, Nicaragua.
In the South American countries. So if my brother, there is a waiting list of 16 years, if the I-130 is approved, they can just come here and advance parole and keep working on the EAD, Emily?
That's what they're doing. Yep.
Why can't
they're not doing it for everyone.
I think what is approved.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think one thing, when we talked about the I-140 EAD years ago, when they were talking about implementing that, a lot of people said, well, why don't you just let people file the 485 without their date being current? So that they can get the EAD and the AP. And the difficulty there is that the law actually says that you cannot file an I-485 until a visa number is immediately available. So I don't think there's a way that they can allow the 485 to be filed without congressional action changing that language of the statute. But they could give anybody that's in the U.S. with an approved I-140 an EAD and AP, just like they did for these other countries, based on the family-based petition.
Anuj Arora is asking if there is any spillover for the family immigration coming next year. Don't expect that, Anuj.
All right, we may have lost Rahul there. So yeah, we definitely recommend for people to write those letters. We give you the links, we give you the templates for that. We're just not having enough people make noise about this issue compared to some of the other immigrant situations. And we don't want to pit immigrant groups against each other. But if you look at the advocacy efforts that the Legal Dreamers have been doing, these are the kids of people on long-term visas, they've been making quite a lot of strides with their advocacy efforts. Of course, they still haven't succeeded, but the fact that they have people in Congress willing to put forth bills, they tried to get a bill, a provision into the NDAA recently that would have helped. There's a specific bill introduced into the Senate that would allow kids who age out to still receive the green card with their parents. They've been doing a lot of advocacy, which is getting noticed, and it's getting more and more support. And we don't see that same kind of effort coming from the employment-based category. So definitely need some more on that front. Going to a couple of other questions here. Chintan said, looks like Rahul has retrogressed. Hopefully he'll be back shortly. We don't have to wait till October for him to come back. Let's see here. Yeah, so just a reminder for people, a couple of questions about if you've already filed the 485 and your date retrogresses, what exactly happens? So your 485 will remain pending. It basically gets put on a shelf and they won't be able to do anything with that, but they will continue to give you the EAD and continue to give you the AP until the date becomes current again, and only then will they be able to approve the 485. So you don't have to worry about refiling the 485 or anything like that. You can decide if you want to continue your non-immigrant status or rely just on the adjustment of status and use the EAD and AP to work and travel instead.
Chandra Babu Gaur has this question. His prior date is February 2023. Do you think EB-1 will move forward? I have a gap of 1.5 years considered on October EB-1. It will revert back to February 2022. That's going to be very unlikely, Chandra Banu. I want you to have plan B if the priority date is not going to be current. I think so. The plan A should be if the priority date is not going to be current. Plan B should be if the priority date is going to be current. So please have your plans ready, because don't be dreaming around that the priority date is going to be current.
Let's see. It's another question about what we can expect for EB-2 priority dates come in October when we get next year's green cards out. I think our best guess is where the filing dates are right now, which for EB-3 is August 2012. I don't know if we'll go much beyond that even in October when we get a full year's worth of green cards, because there were so many. That whole October 2020, they took in so many applications and then wasted all of those green cards, and then everybody's just left waiting, and now we're stuck with the 7% cap, only able to get the bare minimum every year. It's going to take 10 years to get back to where it was in October 2020.
Kunal has this question. Does a 7-year cap still applies if the person has a GCEAD? Well, if you have a GCEAD though, if the 7 years expires, you can stay in the United States and work. Even if the priority date goes back, you can still work. Absolutely, that's not a problem. You're in a good shape if you have an EAD.
Another question, if for someone with an L1A, if the I-140 and the 485 were filed concurrently and then the date retrogresses, do they continue processing the I-140? Yes, they do. You may need to premium process it because the processing times for I-140s can be up to a year these days for the EB-1 category. But they will continue to process the I-140. It's just the 485 that they put on hold when the date is no longer current.
KGS has heard the rumors that they're asking medicals for the priority date whose priority date is not current. Why are they asking it? And are they going to give the green card? I don't know, they should not be asking, especially if the priority date is 2014 or so, they should not be asking. But I see that they're asking, please respond to it if it's an RFE with the medicals. Don't write to them saying that, hey, you know, my priority date is not going to be current. We're asking, please respond to it. Now, will they keep asking the medicals again? Yes, there is a chance for them if the priority date doesn't become current in the next 2 years. Yes. What about some of the people are receiving the green cards when the priority date is not current? Is the same question coming from KGS? No, there are some errors that are occurring by the USCIS. If you receive the green card, they may take it back. They may take it back. You should consult a lawyer immediately if by any chance they have given a green card for you when the priority date is not current.
Question from Emily is, for the October visa bulletin, will they use the filing date chart? Historically, yes, they have allowed us to use the filing date chart at least in October, and in most years, October, November, December, sometimes even into January. So I would expect that. Of course, we go wrong on all of these predictions so often, but generally, yes, we use the filing date chart in October.
Ganeshan has this question. His priority date is not current. And they have already conducted one interview, they're conducting the second interview. Well, definitely that rings a bell to me that there may be something wrong. I would consult a lawyer privately, Ganeshan, and make sure that you do a mock interview. In our office, we do a mock interview. We go through as if, you know, we are the USCIS official and interview the things and find out what are the deficiencies that are in there. Typically, when they book an appointment, we tell them, hey, why don't you give us a copy of your 485 application. We can take a look into it so that we can ask the questions. You can have it done by a lawyer, or the alternative would be that you may want to take a lawyer with you and have the lawyer do the mock interview and have a lawyer with you at the time when you go to the 485, especially when it's a second 485 interview when the priority date is not current. People are asking questions with regards to, is L1A, should they keep the L1A status or GCEAD? Pros and cons of both. One major disadvantage for using the EAD would be that, EAD in advance parole would be that sometimes when you want to do an emergency travel, you may not get an advance parole and you cannot travel until you have an advance parole. When it comes to the L1A, of course, you can travel and get the stamping in outside the country. So that's the major disadvantage of using the EAD. But there are many advantages of using the EAD. You don't have to extend the L1A. EAD extension is very easy. They're not going to ask much documentation. The filing fees is zero to extend the EAD.
Yeah, and another question from Ravi kind of on that is, if you do end up maxing out your 7-year limit, but have the EAD, is the AP the only option to travel at that point until the priority date becomes current? Yes. Yeah, so once you max out of L1, you're basically relying on your pending adjustment of status. And in that situation, the only way to travel is with the AP.
Emily, why can't the Department of State know what's going on and predict it properly, and rather than moving it to all the way a decade and surprise?
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing. The new guy that took over, I mean, it's just a mess. How can they not know how many are in the pipeline?
Was the old guy any better?
Probably not. Except for that brief period in 2007, maybe.
He was very good in 2007 by making everything current, though.
Yeah.
For sure, I can tell that. Shilpa is saying that her priority date is 2015 EB-1C. They filed the 485 this month. Will the visa number will be available in October? There is a good chance for it, though. I believe in it, though, that Emily, that the priority date for EB-1 for Indian nationals will move all the way to 2018 at least, though, because it was locked up in 2018 for a long period of time and got opened in September 2020, Emily. So I'm expecting it is to move to 2018, but as such, I've gone wrong so many times. Hope so, this will be right now. Why are they not publishing the 485 inventory, Emily? That's a question coming from RC.
Yeah, I don't know. They stopped publishing that under Trump and just never brought it back. So we've actually filed a Freedom of Information Act request about that. Number one, to get the data, but also to find out, what was the decision-making factor behind that. So people should be able to see where they're at in line. That's the best data that we have. Of course, it's only based on pending 485, so it doesn't tell us how many I-140s are out there, how many duplicate I-140s there are, how many husband and wife have both their own I-140s, or how many family members are going to be applying with that 485. There's just a lot of unknowns until someone actually files the 485, but there's got to be a better way to keep track of how many potential people are out there.
Krishna's prior date is April 2012. If I receive the POM approval, can I file the 485? No, the prior date is not current for you. The prior date. Emily, one of the other things that I want all these people who have been waiting in line, if their children are becoming 21, they should probably have plan B for them, though. Otherwise, they'll be in trouble, Emily. Anybody whose children are 12 years and all the way to 21, and they're waiting in line for getting the EB-1C approved or getting the green card in EB-1C approved, you may want to consult a lawyer to have an alternative plan. And if your child is above 16, you should get the child also to the lawyer when you speak, because these children also need to be aware of what's going on and what's their plan of action going forward, though. Anything else, Emily?
Nope, I think we are covered pretty much everything for today.
And if you have any questions, guys, you can always make an appointment with me, Emily, or any of our good colleagues, and our link is provided there. We expect everybody who thinks so that the priority date should move forward will write a letter to the administration and to the Congress. We have given a draft of that provided to you so that you can make any necessary changes before you can send it to them. Thank you guys for coming in.